Sairam. Sairam. Unmute.
Same as the third from the top, from the third from the top.
Sairam. 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 Here. Where is the system setting? Hmm. Hmm. So it's the volume maybe. All right. So I would like to continue with our slide on etiquette for during our study circle. Just want to make sure that we are all on the same page. So let's not, we have seen this slide many times. I just want to make sure that we are all cognizant of what is expected of us during the study circle. And that's why I have this up here. But with that said, I think I will go ahead and start our discussion. I don't know if people online can hear. So if you can hear, please give us a thumbs up. So at least we can be sure that it is it's not something at our end. Our speakers are not connected. So that's why there is confusion here. But so thank you. So with that said, we will just review our last session. So in the last session, we talked about um, just the foreword of this book, where we discussed living life with knowledge of a finite time in this body, being born as a man, make use of time wisely, and how we can bring awareness to the present moment. We also talked about the sadhana that we can take up, with, and sadhana that we can take up for Swami's 100th birthday with intent and focus. We also have committed to taking up the Bhagavata Vahini and practicing what we speak today and take away and our takeaways as lessons from what we have read. So, and we talked about how practice is key to spiritual growth. We moved on to chapter 1. We heard the chapter, and then we have talked about how can one develop yearning to God, and we talked about how everyone does not how yearning towards God does not happen in everyone, and who can derive the joy from stories of God. What qualities are important in man to become a Bhagavata, and so on. Those are the pointers that I could think of. If anyone else has anything to add, please speak in the mic, because folks on online can hear when we speak on the mic. Thank you. And no, it's working for the online. It's not working here in our speaker. So, with that, I will just move on to the next slide, because I just wanted to see if anyone has anything that they would like to act from or add from what we talked about yesterday. Or sorry, last week, what we talked about last week. I'm sorry, a little distracted here, but just an open forum for any questions or any further discussions that you may have taken in your notes that we can follow up right now. I know all of you have written notes, so if there are any questions that are unanswered or something that you thought about, we can definitely discuss. Okay. Okay. If there are no other further questions, I would like to move along with the first chapter. And I just put a few discussion points, as you all know, for us to kind of just be aware of what that chapter's intent was. So having said that, I just wanted to see if anyone would just read this, please, while I set some things up. There are questions following this.
Such a cleansed heart is the most appropriate altar or tabernacle. In that fragrant bower, the Lord will establish himself. At that very moment, another incident will also happen. The group of 6 vices that had infested the place will.
When these vices quit, the wicked retinue of evil tendencies and the vulgar attitudes that live on them will break in and disappear. Sorry. Without leaving their addresses. Then man will shine in his native splendor of truth and love sapient prema. He will endeavor without hindrance to realize himself, and finally succeed in merging with the universal and eternal. He will liberate himself from the tangle of ignorance Maya. His mind will fade away, the long hidden secret will be revealed to him. He will discover his divinity. So, yeah. So, with that said, how can we create an altar in our hearts? I mean, what is Swami talking about when we talk about, creating? When he says create an altar in your heart, and what are your daily practices that help you? I just want to also confirm that our sound in the hall is back. I just want to confirm if you can give a thumbs up if you're online. If online can hear as well. Thank you so much. Yeah. So with that said, how can we create an altar in our hearts that how can we make our heart an altar? I guess that's what I'm trying to get at. So the first step is to have complete faith in whoever you are, having this guru. And once you have it, no matter what problems are being thrown at you, you still need to hold on to it. If you have that, I think then everything else will fit into the place. Absolutely. I get that. Yes.
Yeah, I completely agree. The faith is the foremost, but then it's not just the faith, it is continuous process of realizing that divinity is there within, and then to weed out the negative propensities that I think we are born with that, probably the product of karma. Over so many lifetimes, we have accumulated those qualities, and so it's a continuous practice to get rid of that, uh, the negative. I think that plus the prayer or other um, sadhana that we can take up to reduce that negative property. I think that's what is.
Yeah, so I heard some, like it is not from me, I mean, it's from, listening. So three aspects to that, right? So it is first the faith, and then you experience whatever experience you gain through that faith, and then complete surrender. So that then we follow the progression. But many of us, including me, we have it. When we come across some difficulty, our faith and stuff, it becomes shaky. Is that, is family really looking after us? Yeah. And so that part of faith should not be that no matter what, like the story, right? No matter what, you hold on to that faith, completely surrender.
I personally think it's less about faith and more about focusing on those human values, the three forms: thought, word, if you have all those 3 things with the human value, be a perfect environment for the whole thing.
Very nice.
Yeah. So, these like human values and
Bhargav.
Bhargav said, I think it's very important to cleanse your thoughts, right? You're creating an altar, but you don't clean.
Yeah.
You yourself not feel good, right? The puja altar you have to clean it. Those are the negative traits are very, very important. These are described in Ashtanga Yoga, Yama Niyama, right? So being always truthful, ahimsa, towards yourself and towards others, not stealing, not having those jealous feelings, And these are like 6 limbs that were described in the Yama part and also in the Niyama part. Brahmacharya. It was not like not marrying and stuff like that, but keeping your heart clean.
Yeah.
So these things are also very important. I was just wondering, what do we mean by altar? So what do we see when I say put in my house? What is it? What are we thinking? What is?
Online questions.
I have no idea.
The way I understand, an altar is a place where the divinity exists. So, if we are divine, that divinity is there. Usually, we are that the place as the heart. But so, if that divinity is there, that is our altar. So, just like in a temple, we have an altar, or here we have an altar, where we keep that place pristine as far as possible. So we try to keep it clean, neat. And so the same thing holds good within us also. What cleanliness we have to do is the getting rid of all that negative. That's what I interpret. That is what I interpret as.
So again, what negatives, right? What are the negatives that we are looking to cleanse, and how often do we need to clean it?
Every moment. Every moment. Every moment.
Every action, yes.
Yeah,
Can you repeat
negative
that?
ones are jealousy, anger, ego.
Physical thing.
Sairam, they continue.
Right?
Give her,
So they sort of pop up without your knowledge, even without your awareness, even negativity can come out. It could be anything, or even from the past times. Something will pop just like that, and it will be negative. I wonder why the positive does not pop up. The same way, if instead of the negative, if the positive will show up just like that, out of nowhere, that would be nice. But it doesn't happen. Funny thing is, if it's all negative you have not liked, and that will show. And it sort of drags on in the brain.
yeah. So, very good point, Ashaji. Absolutely, the negatives always creep up. That's why we have to practice every moment. We said here, we said that we should be practicing every moment to cleanse our thoughts, to make sure that we are aware. And there was one more point that was made that I think I'm forgetting. But basically, we are talking about how we can make our hearts an altar, and what our daily practices can be. So I think we can move on to the next piece of this. And Bhargav, would you like to read this, please?
The story of this play is all natural. It has no other component, no other thing, no other. Anyone can drink this bowl from any part of the ocean, of that ocean of nectar. The same sweetness exists in every part of it. There is nothing inferior to mar the sweetness. Love of God and love for God are both equally sweet and pure, whatever the method of or achievement. Such love is holy and inspiring. Sugar is sweet when eaten during day or night, for it is night for the person who eats not the sugar, for the sugar. Sugar behaves uniformly always.
Thank you. Okay, so first thing that I always think is my thought was love of God and love for God are both eternally sweet and pure. And the other thing was, how can listening to God's story help us feel the sweetness? Why is it that only God stories or something positive help us with feeling that sweetness? God stories are not always positive. It's always good against the bad. We have many God stories which are not completely, there are also stories of how gods have, I guess, been influenced by their tamasic qualities. Even then, we come away with a lot of positivity. We feel good listening to it. Why? Why? And how does that help us feel the sweetness?
The way I understand is it's not just the story. The story can be there. It's with what intent and with what um, level that you are listening to and how you are connecting with that story. I think that makes a difference because story, if you listen when you are, you will understand it one way. When you are 30s and 40s, you will understand it differently. When you are in 60s and 70s, you understand it differently. So that's because when we grow up, I think we are also maturing, whatever you may call spiritual progressing. So the same story will appeal differently. So in other words, listening to God's story is, I mean, you said that there are some what do you say? Not always love is shown in those stories.
Yes.
Sometimes there are people who hate, and that's a combination. That is that the love, the power of love cannot be seen unless there is hate or the fear that is there. I think from that standpoint, the stories are there to impart the importance of that quality. So
So they say sugar behaves uniformly always. How can we compare sugar to God then? Right? That is the comparison here, right? Or is it comparison to love? So that's what.
no,
God is love, love is God, right? I think in every story, I remember taking a scene in it is like good, bad, up and down. That's what human life. All the stories that you're seeing through the human life, that's what it's shown. But the message is always going to be how God's love is, right? So we have to take that message from it. If you want to focus your idea on who killed who, how many times, who said what, how many times, then your mind will go that way. So again, as you progress in the spirituality, you will see the love and that message, the actual message that is wanted to portray to this with these stories. That's what is it.
Yeah, please.
He said, and sometimes whatever.
Yes. So yeah, thank you for that. Absolutely. God's story is always ends in triumph, for sure. But then taking that lesson, what should be our purpose of this birth that we have? If we have taken the lesson of God is love and love is God, then what is the purpose of our birth? Is it to realize some things? And if we do, then we need to kind of focus on that purpose, which is what will lead us through the discussion for this book as well.
So the first is for me, all servants. That's always good. Always I think about how can I every day, every minute we need to think about only serve. That's the only way to reach God. So that's the purpose of human birth is to serve and realize who serve, who we are and how we are connected.
So realizing through service that we are also love embodiments, basically.
Um, in my thoughts, it is finding out yourself what you are basically. Once you start reflecting in that aspect, all these lava sarva will automatically, because you start lava, you'll be still progressing, but you start realizing who you are, where is what is the cause of your affect yourself inside, then all these other activities are.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Hello, I'm Manoj. I do agree with what you just said. Self-realization is the purpose of human birth.
Mm.
And definitely, there are many ways to get it. Is one of the best and easy way to get it. That's why maybe that is and four that is highlighted more than others. There are different ways to do that, and definitely we have experience also. Service and love has been the passive way. for- I think I can also see so many stories we have seen of devotion also. Each one. I don't think there's anything like this is easier or difficult. Depends on the individual, I think, and the purpose of that life, that life form that has taken birth. For them, for example, he chose the devotion path. Uh, he definitely will realize that is so each person, each life when it's born, I think it comes with that purpose. And depending upon the spiritual life they have accumulated over so many lifetimes, they are in a position to be realized or to realize.
Yeah.
It's love of God, life satisfaction. If I got what I wanted, I'm very happy. I love God. Then you get a kick in your head somewhere, and right? I don't know God. So what happens? Love of God, what happens to this body of ours? So the two are connected. It's very hard to love God all the time. Yeah, I love the God when everything is okay with me, fine, 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 yeah. And if it isn't, hey, that's not God's love. Love me. So we have to learn to go above and beyond that. It's not what happens to this body only that makes us believe God's love. The two are not connected, the two are not
Correct.
related. We have to understand that, go beyond it and try to be in that state of loving God despite of what is happening to you. More so when you are down, when the chips are down, as they say, more so than when everything is fine and dandy. So that connection is important
Yes.
of love to God with our what's happening to us.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ashaji. So, with that, I think that's a great segue into our next chapter because that is what we are going to begin our stories for the Bhagavata Vahini, and we will now be focused on starting off our discussion for the next chapter. However, I want to take a minute here to make sure that you write one point for yourself as takeaway from this chapter. It is not something that someone else needs to do for you. It is something that is you, so that it will help you review yourself. Once we are done with our 100 session. So again, with that said, I just want to give everyone a minute, and I'll pass out the books to the newcomers if we have any. Okay, now we will move along to chapter 2. There is an audio that will be playing online. Please give a thumbs up if you cannot hear the audio. And here I have also shared the screens for us to read along with it. Vaira.
Bhagavatha Vahini, Chapter 2. The Birth of a God-loving person. Maharaj Parikshit was the very self of Abhimanyu, who had attained the heavenly abode of heroes. When Parikshit was an embryo, growing in the womb of Uttara, he saw the sharp arrow let off by Ashwatthama flying towards him, emitting sparks of fury and terror, bent on his destruction. But at that very moment, he saw also a person of brilliant charm, armed with a terrific wheel, breaking that death-dealing arrow into 100 pieces. The royal fetus was filled with wonder and gratitude. He pondered deep on the identity of his savior. Who is he? He must also be dwelling in his womb with me, because he had seen the arrow at the very moment I saw it. But he has such intrepidity and skill that he could destroy it before it reached me. Can he be a uterine brother? How could he get hold of that wheel? If he is endowed with a wheel, how did I miss having it? No, he is no mortal. He argued thus for a long time within himself. He could not forget that face, that form. He was a boy with the splendor of a million suns. He was benign, blissful, and blue like the clear sky. After saving him so dramatically and so mercifully, he had disappeared. He had the form always before him, for he was seeking to see it again. Whomsoever he saw, he examined to find out whether that form corresponded with the form he had reverentially fixed in his mind. Thus he grew in the womb, contemplating that form. That contemplation transformed him into a splendor-filled baby. When at the end of the period of gestation he was born into the world, the lying-in room was lit by a strange light. The female attendants of Uttara were dazzled by the brilliance. Their wits were overcome by wonder. Recovering herself, Subhadra, mother of Abhimanyu, sent word to Yudhishthira, the eldest of the Pandavas, announcing the birth. The Pandava brothers were overwhelmed with joy when they heard the glad tidings for which they were waiting anxiously. They ordered that bands play and guns be fired in the honor of the event, for a scion had been born for the royal family, a successor to the Pandava brothers. The people heard the peal of guns and sought the reason for the joy. They rushed towards Indraprastha in large masses of enthusiasm. Every corner of the kingdom gushed with joy at this event. Within minutes, the city was transformed into a heavenly garden fit for gods to give audience to men. Yudhishthira distributed several varieties of sweets to all who came. He granted several cows as gifts to Brahmins. He instructed the ladies of the court to give golden caskets full of saffron and kumkum to women. Brahmins were awarded silk clothes and precious gems. Citizens were transformed with joy, for the dynasty had now secured a heir. Day and night they revelled in hilarious exultation. Next day, Yudhishthira called the family priest Kripacharya and performed the rite of Jata Karma, that is the first cleansing to the infant. He satisfied the Brahmins by gifts of various costly jewels. The scholars and priests blessed the child and returned home. On the third day, Yudhishthira called to his presence renowned astrologers as well as famous palmists and soothsayers, for he was very eager to know whether the fair name of the kingdom and its culture would be safe in the hands of the prince who had come to carry the burden of the state. he received them at the palace with traditional hospitality. They were given appropriate seats in the hall. They were offered scents and silks. The king bowed before them, and joining his palms in reverential adoration, he prostrated before them and prayed, "O wise men, who know the past, present, and future, examine the horoscope of the infant that is born. Calculate the positions of stars and constellations and the planetary influences that will guide his life, and tell me how the future will be shaped." He noted the exact time of birth and placed a note on a golden plate before them. The Pandits took that note and drew up the plan of planetary positions and studied it with great care. They communicated to one another with increasing joy as they began to draw conclusions. They were in great joy themselves. They could not get words to express their amazement. The leader of the group, a great Pandit, at last rose and addressed King Yudhishthira thus: "Maharaj, I have till this day examined thousands of horoscopes and have prepared concerned plans of the zodiacs and constellations, but I must admit I have never yet come across a much auspicious grouping than is indicated in this horoscope. Here, all the signs of good augury have assembled in one moment, the moment of this prince's birth. This moment indicates the state of Vishnu himself. So, all the virtues will gather in this child. Why describe each glory separately, O king? The great Manu has again come into your dynasty." Yudhishthira was happy that the dynasty had such good fortune. He was indeed overpowered by joy. He folded his palms and bent low before the scholars who had given him such good news. This family is lucky to claim such a gem as its scion, through the blessings of elders and pundits like you, as well as the blessings of the Lord, who is her guardian. You say that the boy will develop all virtues and will accumulate fame. But of what use is all that if he has not acquired the quality of reverence towards Pandits, Sadhus and Brahmins? So please look into the horoscope once again and tell me whether he will have that reverence." The leader of the group of astrologers replied, "O king, you need entertain no doubt on that score. He will revere and serve the gods and Brahmins. He will perform many yajnas and yagas prescribed in the ancient texts. He will earn the glory that your ancestor Bharata won. He will celebrate even the Ashwamedha, that is the horse sacrifice. He will spread the fame of this line all over the world. He will win all things that gods and men covet. He will outdistance all those who have gone before him." They extolled him thus in various ways to their heart's content. They stopped because they were nervous to recount all the excellences, as they feared that they might be charged with exaggeration and flattery if they continued to detail the conclusions they had drawn from the horoscope of the baby. Yudhishthira was still not satisfied. He wanted to hear more from them of the excellences of the character of the prince. Pandits were encouraged by this yearning. They said, "O king, you seem to be eager to know about some more aspects of the child's fortune. We shall only be glad to answer any specific question that you may feel inclined to put to us." Noting their enthusiasm, Yudhishthira came forward and asked them, "During the regime of this prince, will there be any great war? And if war is inevitable, will he achieve victory?" "No," said the Pandits, "he will not be pestered by any foe. He knows no failure or defeat in any undertaking of his. This is absolutely true, an unshakable truth." Hearing this, Yudhishthira and the brothers Bhima, Arjuna, Nakula and Sahadeva looked at each other and shared great joy. Meanwhile, Yudhishthira began to speak. He had said, "If that is so," but before he could complete the sentence, he hung his head and was plunged in thought. The Pandits noticed it. They said, "O king, you seem to be anxious to know something more. You have only to ask. We shall readily answer all your questions." "Of course, I am happy at all the answers you have given. He will be virtuous, famous, triumphant over all, loving and kind, treating all equally. He will perform many yajnas and yagas. He will have no enemies. He will bring honor to the dynasty and restore its reputation. All this gives me great joy. But I would like to know also how he will meet his end." The brothers saw Yudhishthira getting rather upset at the anxiety which agitated him over this problem. His voice had faltered a bit when he put the question. They consoled him and said, "Why worry about that at this stage, O king? The end has to come, some day, some way. It is something that cannot be avoided. Something will cause it. Some circumstance will bring it about. Birth involves the contingency of death. We are afraid. The extreme joy of this incident has swayed your line of thought a bit. We think this much is enough. We shall leave the rest in the realm of doubt. Let us not probe further, O king, and let us leave it to God." But Yudhishthira could not somehow give up his desire to know how such a virtuous prince would end his career on earth. He imagined that it must be a truly wondrous finale to a glorious life. So he wanted the astrologers to tell him about it. The scholars set about the calculations again and took a pretty long time over it. Watching this, the king became excited. He hastened them and pressed for a quick answer. Then, finally they gave the reply. This prince will give up his kingdom as a result of a sage's curse. Yudhishthira wondered how such a paragon of virtue can ever invoke upon himself the curse of a sage. He was shocked at the possibility. Meanwhile, the Pandit said, "Our calculations show that he will be bitten by a serpent." Yudhishthira lost heart at this news. All his joy evaporated in a moment. He became very sad and dispirited.
Sairam, that is the end of chapter 2. We have a little time to continue our discussion, but before that, please make a note of any pointers that you would like to discuss in this chapter, because we are going to be continuing this discussion in the following sessions, and we do not want to lose your chain of thought as soon as you've heard the chapter. So I will give a couple of minutes for you to note that down. Okay, so now we'll just continue with our discussion. I know we just heard the chapter, and this question, I don't think we need to read this para all over again, but just this question that discussion point that I wanted to bring about was from the beginning of this chapter when the embryo saw divinity. So with that, what is meant by divine protection? How did that protection come even before it was asked? I mean, the baby did not ask for it. How did that happen? And do we experience that kind of protection?
Siren. I think how long it took us 2 hours.
Yes.
But we made it.
Yes.
So that's important. Well, about the event protection, I want to share something like um this is going to be named around that we have but then powerful divine presence in him from that. Your next to each one of us have a protection. Okay. So if you don't mind, I can relate one experience.
Yes, please.
I thought about it, we were reading that I don't know if you have heard of crying it's really like so many others. So we would conduct a lot of workshops and all. My I read a lot of his books and attended workshop also. Before that, my son Arun, my first one workshop in Colorado. So after attending, he came home and he told that when we have the custom that at the 6 month and in Delhi at Mahila. So he told me, he started, I saw you wearing this sari, the sari, during my
Oh.
So remember, he was in Manson.
Yeah.
Okay? This is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Just bring us away of, what, I was, see, this, who are all standing on that celebration,
Right.
And then I was really glad. I couldn't believe it. And could see it. And oh, it is not just I brought 3 of my paintings. And one of them I know.
Oh, okay.
And this is like this.
Okay.
So I kept the saree. Then I put them in front of him.
Right.
The exact saree. So beyond that, though they say in our Shastras and all the child all the seasons, and so you think of good things, keep good suffering and Ramaswamy, whatever. And then we do the function of the benefit of the child and all that.
Yeah.
So that was kind of proof that yes, the child. Thanks. Remember that. That was one thing.
Thank you.
See the divine protection. See the purpose of why the child is born is for something. We don't know why the life is born and what is the purpose. We do not know, but there is a purpose. So to that extent, that mission is child to achieve that purpose. If you take this example, the purpose is for this Bhagavatam. So it has to happen that way. So the Krishna's purpose of protecting that is
Lineage.
there is so that that's how I see. I think that protection is there for that. We do not know when we are alive. We do not realize that protection.
Agree. So is it always there? How did the protection come? I mean, he is a fetus, right? He never asked for protection. It just came. Yeah, Shobha also. Yes, please go ahead.
No one, as Venkat said, you can see it. You can't ask. Once you're aware, you're praying for this thing, but that is different, right? But divine interventions are, they happen We don't know why he's giving that to some, and I'm assuming that it is for every, because every life probably has a purpose in its own way. It may not be as grandiose as Parikshit's, way of doing it, but it is, every purpose is important. Every little thing is important for God. So,
Yes,
but no, the Baba, he was giving a talk on not and 30,000 people sitting. There was one woman who had a baby in her lap. And she's listening to Bhagavath. The baby had a coin in his mouth and he was gagging on it. He was going to die. And on something in his mouth, the baby. And he started, the mother was listening to Baba. Baba took that thingy out of his mouth. Nobody knew it. And then later he told the thing, he said, God is closer to you than your closest person. And that was so appropriate that this very case. A mother does not know the baby with the organ. He knew it, and he was not Parikshit. The baby was not Parikshit. There was nothing to have other than anything in context with this. It was not Parikshit, but the baby was baby, and for God, that's enough. And that, in other words, we are all protected by Him, whichever way which is necessary for us.
Correct.
Not what we want. We want this and we want that kind of protection. No, but whatever it is necessary for us, what we deserve, whatever God has for us, He is protecting in His own way. And that is, I really truly believe in that.
Yeah, Asha, before you were ending the last sentence, that is what I was going to say. What do you mean by protection? For example, God is not protecting?
Yeah.
So the question is, what is protection? So we need to understand that always what we think is a happy moment need not be happy, and what we think is a sad moment need not be really a sad.
Yeah.
It is us growing spiritually. That's all it is, right? So doing the right and be whatever may come to us, what we think is not a good thing, it still is really a good thing for us.
Yes. Yes, sir.
So, I want to let's quote this example from person, right? Uh, and,
Uh-huh.
and
Ganga.
so he had Ashtavasudha story. And look at that from two aspects. If you have remembered the story, one is why they came. Second is in the eyes of the king, so he has married Gandhis, and the condition she said was at no point of our married life you should question me.
Yes.
Whatever I do, good or bad. Just yeah. So after the marriage, the first child was born, and next day she takes the child and throws it into the branches
Yeah.
and gives that. It goes on for 7 children, and finally the 8th child is born to you. Now you look at it from point of view. God is not protecting the child. But then you look at it from historical perspective of why they came into the room. And there was a person that is, they were just supposed to appear on earth and then go, disappear and go back. So we are all in some boat of that nature, and we don't know what. And as a matter of fact, when we are in the womb and we are being, we are God, we are. Then comes the plan to come out and all the time. I think we are always protected.
Manoji wanted to say something?
Yeah. Is only having good in life. That may not be so. Everything right in life. I'm protected. But when that doesn't, and they say, oh, I'm not protected, see what happened. So that our good and bad, I feel, is not how we should can think at the protection of God. It should be always good, good, good. That's not it. It should not be thought that carefully.
Please.
As Ashaji has mentioned, it is a much bigger of play of law. We are just very small part of it, and it's good and bad in negative terms. It should not be too affectionate to good or too affectionate to, I mean, too inclined or too affectionate to good or bad. But we should do our best and hope for the best and pray for the best. But these are much relative things which our vision is not as high and as vast as God's vision. And we try to when we try to focus, when we try to serve, when we try to have internal will, we try to become as close as possible, that we start to realize that that's how we start to see, that's how we start to have intuition. This is as good as to Lord to start experiencing all those things ourselves also. Nothing to be proud about that, but that shows your own spiritual elevation.
Yeah.
So good and bad, just want to emphasize, it's a much bigger thing that we can do. And how it happen in that way, like Vasu, the eighth Vasu had to stay here for much longer period. The seven Vasus did not do the bigger sin. Eighth Vasu was the least of those eight Vasus.
Yeah.
That made him stay longer on this earth than those seven. For in worldly manner, it looked like they are getting back in one day.
Yeah.
But that was their own suffering was also one day. They just it was just to follow what the leader of Vasu told them to do.
Yeah.
So the leader was
Vishnu.
Vishnu. He had the years.
Yeah.
And he had to sleep on that
Bed of arrows.
because of all those servants. So we don't know. We have to be always praying that we don't let us do anything wrong. Nothing happens unintentional. So
Yeah.
he did not do it.
Yeah.
It was unintentional. But it made him for that period of time bigger
Bigger
than we
than
can
it.
imagine.
Yeah. Please, Jai Bhai.
So
Then we have to.
my question is, when you talk about divine protection, so what somebody asked the same question: is
Right.
that a protection of your life or protecting you from the bad things that's supposed to happen? So that's the fundamental question. Anyway.
Yeah.
The part here is God's protection is always there, but at the end of the day, what you're trying to do, he tries to help you all. But you decline, you do all the bad stuff. You have to face that one. That's it. You have to take that. So end of the day, it's all how you live your life. But in the bigger game, God's game is always there. That again, you are contributing to that bigger game in a small manner or big manner. That's what protection I do. That each one of us, many of us, these are years now. But if you look through that, there are moments we thought things didn't go the way we thought. But let's not focus on it. Let's focus on all the good things that happen. We have a good for our things. We are able to eat sufficiently. We have some money in the bank. But we have, and yet we have problems too.
Yeah.
We think about those problems and say, why I'm not getting this? Why I'm not getting this? And think about all the things that happen. So I think we are always protected. I might expect that, conclusion. We
Yes.
are.
Thank you, Shankaranji. So with that, I think today we will have to end here. I would like you to make note of whatever thought you have right now, because you will forget it for the next week. However, we will go ahead and kind of summarize what we have and then take it from there next week. Before we end, I just wanted to, for the purpose of this chapter, I thought that this week it would be nice to actually look at our desires and observe and note down one desire that stuck through for the day for you. You will also, I feel that way because I tried this practice this week, and I think the desires change pretty fast for me. Like it's from moment to moment, my desires, all the way from this meeting should end to, oh my God, the day is already coming to an end. I have so many things to do. So all of those desires, that you have, observe. So that will help you to observe your mind. Of course, the end of this discussion, we talked about divine protection being always there. And a great way to express that is through a gratitude journal, and that really helps. And with that, we will conclude this week's session. If anyone has any questions on the chat, we will follow up with you in the following session. And we'd like to end with Om and Three Shantis. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Jai Sai Ram. Yeah.
I was sitting on the over here to my phone. The audience question are